Before we go on to talk about a few more features of arrays, just a quick public service announcement to make sure that you have absorbed the following. First index of an array, 0. The first element is actually the 0th element. It's just weird. You see it a lot in computer science. It's just how it is. Last index, length minus 1. Okay? This is why the for loop goes less than the length of it. Over here, it goes less than the length because you never actually want to reach the lengtheth item in the array. Okay, now moving on. Instead of using how many numbers here, it's okay to use how many numbers in this case because it's just declared up here. There's not much happened to it. But the moment that I declare an array, the better way to access its length is to use its length property. And so we're going to encourage you to do that by requiring it in the labs and so forth. Once you have the array, it does know how long it is because it knows how much memory it just allocated in order to store those ints. An int is a certain size, it has a certain number of them, and so it can do some multiplication to figure out how much memory that takes up. It also has a little bit of bookkeeping in the form of .length and a few other things to give you information about the array. So use the array's .length property instead of keeping around a variable that's only function is to tell you what the length of it is. Don't bother. Just ask the array for it. This will also translate well to some other languages if you get into this habit. So far this made the code a little nicer. Now I just am only talking about the array in here instead of external variables. The other thing that the book mentions is that you can use the arrays to string method in order to do some printing if you don't care so much about the format. So here I am writing a for loop, just its only purpose is to print the array. If I didn't want to go to that trouble and I was just printing out for debugging purposes, I could do something like this instead. System.out.println arrays.toString. We'll take an array and give you back a string and then pass the array that you want to print. So this would also be fine. In order to use the arrays class, you have to import it, which I usually forget to do until I build, and then I get an error. And when I'm importing multiple things, I like to alphabetize them. Here it's not such much of an issue. I only have 3 things, but later when you have so many things that you're importing, it's a little nicer if you can organize them in some way that's easier for you to read. Let's give this a quick try in the terminal. Six of them, and this is the format. So you don't get to specify the format, you always get the commas and the square brackets, and so for debugging purposes that might be fine for you. If you want to control the format, then you are going to have to write a loop like we have here. So this should give us this is a good introduction to some of the couple things that you can do with arrays, namely putting values in them and then printing values out. In the next example, we're going to see how to find the maximum and minimum values in an array.